Let's finish off our discussion of the First Punic War, with its progress and its implications for the future. So we'll learn about this titanic conflict to understand why it ended indecisively. No, although the Romans won, they didn't really completely win. Develop our strategic thinking skills. Attritional, bit by bit, warfare. Attritional. Endurance, disaster. Hamilcar Barca. Exhaustion, humiliation, rebellion, expansion, Iberia. So, the war on land. Not a great deal to talk about. The war mostly took place in Sicily. It was mostly about sieges. Romans besieging various Carthaginian-held fortresses along the coast. Sometimes successfully, sometimes not. At one point, the Romans invaded North Africa, and they lost that battle. So it was a real attritional warfare on Sicily, bit by bit, trying to capture fortresses. Only a couple of battles in the whole 20-odd year war. However, at sea is where the real war was. And the war consisted of fleets, having battles. Rome has usually won those. In a sea battle, the losing side suffers terrible losses because there's nowhere to run to. But then the Romans would blow it because they were incompetent sailors. They'd stay at sea when a storm was coming. Carthage would see it was coming and leave. Romans would stay, and the entire fleet would get destroyed and everyone would die. This happened 2 or 3 times to the entire Roman fleet. This is why the Roman losses in this war are so high. Maybe 300,000-400,000 people died in the First Punic War, mostly oarsmen on boats who died in shipwrecks, not in warfare. Then it brings us to Hamilcar Barca, or Hamilcar as he's known at this point in time. He is a Carthaginian noble, and he leads an army, a mercenary army, in Sicily. By the time he gets involved in the war, Carthage doesn't really have much of a hold left on Sicily, so Hamilcar fights what is known as a guerrilla war. He hit and run tactics, and he never loses a battle, never loses an engagement, and he strikes fast. Barca is the Punic word for lightning. It's a nickname, really, honorific. Hamilcar Barca means Hannibal light. Hamilcar Barca means lightning. He strikes as fast as lightning. That's what the Barca name is. So this war drags on, drags on. Carthage wins a sea battle, Rome wins a sea battle, Rome loses a fleet, builds a new fleet, etc., etc., until pretty much both sides are exhausted. But Carthage blinks first. In 241, Carthage sues for peace. They agree to give all of Sicily to the Romans. Plus, they agree to pay a massive fine over the course of the next 20-odd years to Rome, called indemnity. A few years later, the Romans sort of renege on this peace treaty and grab Corsica and Sardinia as well. So you've got to imagine all of this is now red. And Carthage is pretty humiliated. Which is where the story of Hamilcar and his young son Hannibal coming in. The story is, it's in Polybius, that Hamilcar gets his son Hannibal to swear an oath never to be a friend of Rome. I'm not entirely sure whether this story is true. It seems to have come from Hannibal himself. In later life, he told the story to the king of the Seleucid Empire in the east, and the story comes from there. Though how true this is, we're not entirely sure. Meanwhile, back in Carthage, the war's over. Hamilcar Barca's army is repatriated back to Carthage with their weapons. That's part of the peace treaty. When they get there, they're sent there in small groups, and the idea is they're mercenaries. They arrive in Carthage, they get paid off, and they toddle off. Carthage decides, we haven't got enough money now, sorry lads, we can't pay. This kicks off what's called the Mercenary War. The mercenaries, understandably, aren't very happy about the fact they've been fighting all this time and not being paid. And quite a long, bitter, nasty war, also called the Truceless War, kicks off. Lots of atrocities on both sides. Eventually, Hamilcar is recalled, recruits a new army, and in a long and really nasty war, which is a large-scale use of elephants. We can tell. Hamilcar crushes and pretty much exterminates the mercenary armies. But after all this, Carthage is weak. So Hamilcar is sent to Spain, Iberia. You can see here is the Carthaginian possessions. And over the next 10, 20 years, you can see here, Hamilcar expands the area of land that Carthage controls. Very rich, lots of silver mines, lots of more allies to recruit into his army. So Hamilcar is able to recruit a large army, train it, pay for it at the silver mines, and isn't becoming a threat again to Rome or to anybody. 228, Hamilcar dies, possibly defending his sons. Talk about that in the lesson. He's succeeded by his son-in-law, Hasdrubal the Magnificent. He leads the army for a while. He dies in 221 BC, and when he dies, Hamilcar's eldest son, Hannibal, is elected leader of the Carthaginian army in Spain.